If you ever walk down the streets and you are looking for men, hoping that someone will ask you out because you don't want to meet men just on dating apps, but also in real life, but then it never really happens, and you wonder, okay, is something wrong with me? Maybe I'm not good enough. Why is this working for other women? Well, what if I told you it's the exact opposite? What if I told you that it is a very good sign that men don't ask you out in public and you actually don't want them to ask you out? Today, I want to share why this is so we can change this narrative that you're telling yourself, and you can be more confident and feel very fulfilled and complete when you walk down the streets and you're not looking for male attention in a way or in a place where it's just not very appropriate. Because I've been in your place and now I don't want men to ask me out in the streets, and after this video, you will feel the same. I will also want to catch up a little bit on what to do instead, like if you want to meet men outside of dating apps and still in real life. With that being said, hi, I'm Anna, and welcome to another episode of Love Diary, reflections and activations about love and dating from a young lady who's becoming a wife in the 21st century. So I was exactly in your place. I think I I started dating 1.5 years ago, almost two, because I would be in the streets. I'm usually an introvert, I'm more at home, and I would start seeing all the men. And I don't know why I was so attracted to masculine energy all of a sudden. I think it's because biology kicks a little bit in, and maybe it's like time for me to find a man now because I've never been in a relationship. But I was very, very mad at myself for looking at men all the time and having this like almost like dumb desire to have like someone come up to me and ask me out. And I had all these girls online that I look up to, and they're just telling how they walk in the streets, and then they have this nice chit chats and flirts with guys, and then they go on nice dates with them. And it was just not working for me. And I thought, okay, something maybe is wrong, but like also, why do I want that? Like, it's so weird. I don't know. What happened? I dived very deep into learning about relationships, about flirting, about polarity. I've been studying that now for 4 years because I'm obsessed with this. And in one book, I remember it was recommended to smile and make eye contact because a woman is actually the initiator. It's not the man. You invite a man, and I totally agree with this. And I learned that's also one reason why men generally in my whole life didn't really approach me. It's because I was like not really looking at them, and now I understand, okay, it's signaling that I'm not really interested. So yes, it was about making eye contact and smiling. Made totally sense for me. I was like, okay, let's try that out. But I couldn't do it. Like I tried it in the streets and I was just freeze. And I thought something's wrong with me. Because I heard from all those women, yeah, when you're flirty, then you just open and you smile. But it was just not working for me. Not in public, not in the streets. And what I learned over the course of my life is to trust more in my body. And if I feel uncomfortable or something, okay, maybe there needs to be inner work done. But sometimes it's just my body signaling me this is the wrong path for you. And I learned that this is actually the wrong path for me to wait for men to ask me out in public because I had a little test. So earlier this year, I was still very much in this place. Like, I wish I could just smile to men in the streets and in public places so I can get more dates and not just on the dating apps like I had. And I still have very good results with dating apps, but it's nice to just meet someone in person, right? And have more options. So I was very much in that mindset. Then I got laid off from my job that was training me so much. And suddenly I was a different person. I had so much energy. I was so flirty. And I was like, okay, let's give it a try again. So what I did, I was at public spaces like the train or in a cafe. And I tried out to smile at someone that I think is kind of cute. One thing that was really, really helpful for me is having a book. So I was like reading my book, and then sometimes you can look up, and then when you try, like you can look away and you have something to do, and you're not just staring somewhere in the air, right? It's not awkward. So that was very useful. And I think I can still use the skill in other circumstances. But back then, as I said, I was doing that in public places. And here's what happened and why you don't necessarily want men to ask you out. I remember this one guy in the train, and I have had this like light bulb moment. I'm like, oh my god, breakthrough! I could smile to him, and he very quickly became very flirty when he noticed that I'm smiling at him. And then he came to me just because I was about to leave the train, and then he just wanted my number, and I was completely overwhelmed with the situation. Like nothing was really weird, but I was like, oh, what am I going to do? So I just gave him my number, and he immediately started texting me when I was home. And that was he had a foreign background, so he was not German. And when he was texting me, I suddenly like I really felt, oh, this is not a match. Like he was complimenting too much, like it was kind of love bombing and a little immature. And yeah, I'm looking to fall in love with someone, and can you help me with this and this and this? And I'm like, okay. And what helped was to practice that I don't owe anyone anything. So that was also something that was in a book where I read, okay, smile at guys. It was a smile is not a promise. So at any given point in your dating life, in your life generally, you don't owe men anything. So just because I was smiling and giving him my number, I don't have to go on a date with him and have to keep that conversation. So the first moment of realization was, okay, that went very, very quickly. I don't really have boundaries with men when they smile at me. It's cool that I can, but it was like not really a mature man. Okay, and this pattern kept showing up, and I want to illustrate that for you. Then I was in the streets, I think in the middle of the week, somewhere in a bigger city. I was just having fun. I was a little tired because I just had, I think, a guitar lesson, and I was also starving a little bit, but I was having a nice walk in a park. And suddenly there was like a cute guy. I smiled, and he came to me. It turned out that he is was also foreign. I didn't know because that's like a big tourist city that I was in. And we're having some conversations, and I'm very innocent. I didn't get that he wanted something casual, so he was flooding me with compliments. And after a while, he asked like, "Hey, do you want to go? Like, what are you going to do tonight?" And I thought, tonight? Like, what are you going to do at night? Right? There's no restaurant open. Like, a night starts maybe at 10 p.m. Like, I don't go clubbing. I don't go to bars. So I was just confused. Why is he saying that? So we kept having this little talk and this little flirt, and then he became a little more clear. Said, "Don't you like hot, passionate nights?" And then I was like, okay. No, I really don't want to. I'm traditional. So that was another experience of me just randomly smiling at a stranger that I thought was kind of cute. And it didn't really go like where I wanted to go, right? I'm looking for something long term, more marriage minded. So I told him I'm more traditional. And I think for me, that was just strange because I have so many men that show up for me on dates who will come with flowers and plan all those things. And I don't even like, I'm not intimate with them because I'm ready to marriage. So for me, it was just like mind blowing. How can a man think that just because he gave me 5 compliments, like I didn't know this existed? So that was like a lesson by itself. But I was still open for, I still want to meet guys in public and in the streets. And I think the last one that really, really opened my mind, I was in a train again. And this time I was very picky. I was like looking, okay, is there a German man? Because it maybe was because there were more strangers and foreigners with like more Arabic background. So I found a man accidentally. That was definitely not planned, but there was like a guy in front of me in the train, and he started looking at me. And then I was like, okay, let's see. Like I was very flirty that day. So I was just like smiling and then reading my book. And then he like kind of came to me and just wanted to sit right next to me. What now in hindsight I think was a little bit rude, like he wasn't even asking. But for whatever reason, I was just like, okay, yeah, sit down. And we had a very nice flirt. It was a very cool conversation. I never had that, and it turned out that he was actually a dating college. What I thought hilarious because like I know so much about dating and about relationships, so that would have been so much fun to go on a date with him. And he asked me for my number eventually, and I gave him my number. Now, what happened, and that was weird, that has never happened to me before, he didn't reach out to me. And I have this boundary because I know this from experience. After 48 hours, a man usually reaches out to me to plan a date. And if he's not reaching out within 48 hours, I know he's not really serious because most men write me like that day or next day immediately. So he wouldn't call me, but I knew his name. And I was Googling him and I saw that he has a flirting course where he teaches men to approach women in the wild, to go on dates. And I thought, I had this weird feeling and I felt really, really, really bad. He was just doing that to get my number. I was not 100% sure, of course, like who knows, but I had this like weird gut feeling he was just playing with me. And I first thought, okay, that's karma because I had like these other guys that I was smiling to and then I didn't give them my number, or I gave them my number, then I quickly stopped it because I thought I'm just practicing, even though I thought those guys were really cute. But I thought, okay, maybe bad karma is just coming in. But then I remembered this one dating coach that I used to follow, and I think this video also came up again at that point. He talked about, and that's why I don't want men to ask you out in the wild. He said, only wild men ask you out in the wild. And he said that when you don't get asked out in public by just men, where, like in places where everyone has access to, he says this is a very good sign because that shows me that you, a woman, men have a lot of respect of, who is very desirable. So they don't dare to come to you in the middle of the streets and just ask you out. And I was mind blown. And I watched that video before, but I was a little hesitant. I thought, I heard from some people that I met very good men on the street, so maybe this is not really as bad as he says, and I think it's also a limiting belief. But it was so true in my case, and then I was so mad at myself, like, why did I do that? And like, it just felt so humiliating with the dating coach experience because I knew he was doing that for my number. And that felt, I don't know, like really, really weird. And I didn't like that because usually I have very clear boundaries and I attract very good men. I select them very well. So I was feeling really bad about myself. But then I thought, okay, maybe what is the message in this? Because I think everything happens for me, everything always happens for you, and God is protecting you. I thought, what if this is not bad karma because I smiled at those guys? What if God is very generous and only wants the best for me? And this guy that I met on the train, he also only wanted to protect me and provide for me because I believe every man is a provider. I fell into that, and then the message from God came, I want you to stop smiling at strangers. And I needed this dating coach, this experience to be like, oh my God, no. Like, I don't want to get asked out by men in public anymore. That's when it really, really landed. And now, because I don't think that good men really ask me out in public, I walk through the streets feeling confident and full, and I'm not looking anymore. So I really need this experience. And I was testing a little bit further. So I had now this information. I made that decision. And I was asking my dates on a man that I met on dating apps who were very good. So I went on multiple dates with them. So they kind of approved in a certain, like in certain values and everything. And I asked them, hi, like what do you do? Like when you're in the streets and you see a gorgeous woman, or just generally in public, like would you ask out a woman? And all of them said, no, I don't do this. That was another confirmation. Well, I made the decision because I felt like, okay, I only have really good boundaries of dating apps. And if you need help with this, there's a whole video about where I'm talking what I make different, how I use dating apps different to only meet marriage-minded men. I think I can link that below. Yeah. So I have very good boundaries and selection processes in the dating apps, with the dating apps, but not really in person. So I thought, okay, how can I do that better? And what is my new boundary? Like, what do I need? And I came to the conclusion that I personally don't give my number to anyone that I just met in public. Even if it's a nice guy, even if I think he's cute, I made the decision for myself. I'm not giving my number away. And that really helps me. That's when a guy comes to me and he's even cute, then I can just honestly say that I don't feel comfortable giving him my number. So that was something I learned. Now, but if you still want to meet a man outside of dating apps, I'm like, okay, what can I do? And I also learned this from a dating coach. It's to be in curated places, so places where don't everyone has access. That can be networking events. I also have this one networking marketing club that I'm part of where you only get in when you're like a little bit more high tier, and you also spend a lot of money on going there, and I have a scholarship for this. So in those places where there is time, where there are familiar faces, where it's curated and everyone has access to that, where they need to pay a certain amount to even be there. This is a good place to start having conversation and really get to know someone a little bit better before giving them your number. That's something I really, really like now. I still meet most of my men through dating apps, but you can still meet men in real life. But I don't recommend, like for myself, I notice it's not the right thing to look in the streets where everyone's rushing. And then I had this whole story, this whole narrative built up that I'm not good enough or I do something wrong. When in case it was a really, really good, in case, in fact, it was a really, really good sign that those men don't ask me out. And I want you to think the same. Like, it's not that you're wrong, but it's actually because you're a very good woman that men respect. So the men who are really good, they don't want to offend you, they don't want to make you feel uncomfortable. So, and they're also maybe a little bit intimidated by you, so they don't ask you out in the streets. I do think it's also a little bit of a culture difference because the girls that I was listening to had all these amazing results. At least I think so. At least that's what they kind of hinted on. They didn't directly say it, but that's just what I assume from how they told it. They also came and lived more in Middle Eastern cultures. So this one woman I really like, this one content creator, she's living in Dubai. And I also think I had this conversation with my best friend where she said, I think men, they are just different. And in nowadays time, men are not as active in approaching women like they used to be in, I don't know, in the 40s, 50s, or 60s. So nowadays, men are way more concerned to make you feel comfortable. And I mean, yes, if I think about it, I think from a man's perspective, I would feel a little weird when I'm in the streets and there's a beautiful woman. I just go to her and ask her out. That's also very, very brave. So I think it's also a culture thing. I live in Germany in the West, so and if you know German men, they're not always like that direct and just asking you out boldly. Of course, it's a little character dependent, but generally it's not really our culture. But they're still very, very good men, even though they're not as pursuing like so hard in the beginning. Like in my experience, that increases with time and just safer they feel with me, and they see that I like it when they're more um, pursuing and chasing, and that's when they do that even more. That's been my experience. So I have more compassion with men now. But I also think it helps me now that I know how to smile and to make eye contact when there's a safer space and also when I am on dates. So you can still use that skill, but you don't need to force yourself to smile at strangers, and you can still meet amazing men. You don't need to push yourself to do something where your body just freezes. That might be really just a sign that it's not the right thing for you and that you're actually protected by not doing so. That's what I think now. Now, is there anything else that I wanted to add? Yes, the other point is it now that every man is bad who approaches you in the public? I don't really think so. So there's a little bit of this gray zone because I remember many, many years ago, before I was even going on dates, before I was even ready for that conversation, there was a man in my hometown and we passed each other in the streets, and then suddenly I felt something on my shoulder, and I was just turning around and I was, oh my god, you shocked me, you surprised me. And he said, oh, I was just like walking past you, like, did you see? And I'm like, no, I did not. And he was just saying, hey, you're very beautiful. And then we had a conversation. It turned out we studied in the same university, and he also lives in this very small town that I don't necessarily live in, but it's my hometown. Right, I live in a very little village, but it's my hometown where I went to music school and all the things. And we had a really nice conversation. He was very considerate, and the difference between this man and the dating coach and the train. The dating coach on the train just said, "Can I have your number?" After we had a fun conversation, I was like, "Yeah, sure." But with this man from many years ago in my little hometown, he said, when I said I like kind of have to leave, like I have something going on, he was like, "Hey, I think you're very beautiful, and now we had this conversation. I think you're very interesting and also very nice. So I would like to go on a date with you. Like we can go on a date maybe this weekend, and we go on a walk. Like, what do you think about that? Should we exchange numbers so we can plan that date?" And that's very different from the other man. So that's kind of my standard now. I think maybe, I don't know. I think my boundary currently is that I don't give any man my number who I just met in public, and I think men also understand that, who are healthy and considerate. Um, they understand that you don't do this, that you need to watch out for yourself and for safety reasons. But with him, it was maybe I would have listened a little bit more to my gut and to my intuition with this man, because with him it felt very safe because he was actually talking about going on a date with me and not what is your number, right? So the man who was collecting my number was obviously only collecting my number because he was not really interested in going on a date with me and pursuing me, and the other man wanted to see me, and that's why he wanted the number, just to make sure that we can meet. So I don't think that every man is bad and that only wild men approach you in the wild, because I heard from some women that they also met good men. Even though I've never heard a woman say that she's not married to the man that asked her out in the street. But maybe I just never heard that and it did happen. I'm not sure. I think my goal just with sharing this experience with you is there's nothing wrong. It's always happening for you, and you can experiment with this. Just from my experience now, I realize it's not the best, and I don't want men to ask me out in the streets. And now I have just this peace of mind when I'm in the city and when I'm just walking down the streets or when I'm in a train or in a cafe. I don't wait for this anymore, and that was very oh, just so relaxing and freeing to realize, hey, I'm actually a very good woman. And men don't ask me out because they respect me very much, and it's just not very much in my culture to do that. I'm still not completely close to men approaching me, and you can still have like a little flirt and a nice conversation. You don't need to give them their number. So what I definitely learned from this is, yes, as a woman, you're definitely the one who is initiating. You need to invite the men, and I'm learning this even more now that I feel like, oh, how many men in my life, like talking about limiting beliefs here, how many men, how many boys in my high school time actually liked me very much, but I thought they don't, but I was not giving him any sign of interest. So they maybe just hided it. That was just a mind-blowing moment for me to realize what narrative, like what beliefs you have, it definitely shapes how you perceive reality. So that was very helpful. It's also helpful, this whole smiling, but you can learn that when you are in very safe places, career places like networking, or when you're in a sports club or someone. I think gym could work as well, but I also heard from men that I'm on dates with. I asked them when do they ask out women, because I wanted to like collect a little data, and they said they don't do it in gyms because they feel like they offend women, right? That they only want them for their body or something like this. It's like, okay, it's really tough nowadays to get asked out in real life. So dating apps are doing a very good thing. Um, and maybe like with friends and family members when they introduce you to someone, but you don't have to put yourself out in the wild. So I learned that the woman is definitely initiating, and that's something I learned because I'm more traditional. Like if the man is more pursuing, but I realized I have to play my part as well and show them that I'm open and available and that I want them to come to me. I'm still not asking them out, but I show them that I'm open. That's one thing. Then definitely that if my body feels it's like it's freezing, it's not always a trauma response. Sometimes it's really just your body showing you this is not for us. It's going against what we actually desire. So that was very helpful. It also taught me this whole experiment that I had. It also taught me that I can say no at every given point. You can say no after smiling to them that you don't want to have a conversation. Maybe we're just smiling. You can have a conversation, realize, hey, we're not really a match, and I don't want to give him my number. You can give him this number and think about it and feel like, oh, we're not really a match, and I don't my body feels kind of icky thinking about going on a date, so I can say no. I think that was also a part of this whole experience, what I didn't expect. And of course, eventually, the major lesson that I'm enough and I don't want men to ask me out in the street. And now I'm very not curious. I am careful now because I learned this from my dates that they don't ask women out in the wild. So when a man does, I'm like extra like proving and a little bit, and I have this new filter that okay, I don't give men like in private in public my number. It's just a boundary that I have, and it's totally fine. You can always. I think there was one lady in one of her group chats with the ladies that also are into inner work. We have our own little chat, and she was talking about this one guy in I think a shopping mall, and he asked her like for a number, had a conversation, wanted her number, and she didn't feel comfortable with this, but didn't know how to say no. Like generally, I guess she had some problems with saying no, but I just told her you don't owe him anything and you can have a nice conversation. And for me, because I have this boundary, I don't give my number to strangers. I can say this with love because it's not because I don't like you, it's because I generally don't do that. Okay. So no, nothing's wrong with you. It's a very good sign. Men don't ask you out in the street. There are many different ways to meet good men and stay safe. All right. Are there any questions? Or maybe you have different experiences. I'm also curious if you had very good experiences with men asking you out in the streets. Who knows? Did I cover everything? I have no experiences with men asking me out in the streets. That was me. That was me, you know? And then I thought something's wrong with me. And then I tried earlier this year, I tried that out. And I was like, oh no, it was actually good. It's just like in high school, I always wanted to be one of the party girls. I was always very good at school and more at home, playing the piano, like this kind of girl, okay, this kind of girl. And I wanted to be part of the cool girls, but they didn't really like me. And I felt like they were sometimes jealous of me because some of the guys I felt like liked me that they liked complicated. So I always wanted to go to the parties and I felt something's wrong with me and why am I not going there? And I was very, very sad and thought I'm not good enough. Now, many years later, I can see that my expectation and how I pictured those parties to be, that was actually not a match to the reality. And now I know, oh my God, I was protected and it was such a good thing because those guys, like in school, I felt like they respected me much more than those other women. And I was a little mad because no, why do they respect me so much? Like I want them to have fun with me as well. Like not this kind of fun, not this kind of fun, but just on parties. And then I realized no, it's only about drinking. They're taking drugs there and they have like weird situationships going on there. So it was definitely not what I thought it would be about. And in hindsight, I can see, oh my God, that was the best thing that I was not invited and that I never went there. So it's the same with this. Oh, it's actually serving me all these years that men didn't ask me out in the streets. Just a little analogy. But I also don't smile at them flirdly. That's a good thing. Oh. No, I think in the streets also everyone's rushing somewhere, so it's not really the place to do that. That was something I also learned from this. Yeah. And in cafes that was a little better. Especially with the book. Like the I love books. So I think when I'm in more curated places, I will definitely go with my book because it's like, right, you can also showcase what kind of topics you're interested in. So when I'm with an Atomic Habits book and the guy knows this book, like that's a very cool starting point for a conversation. And I can always look, smile, and then look into my book. And that's more my way of flirting. But I will also, I think I only do that in very curated places, like in very special cafes where not everyone goes to. Yeah. What else? Is there any key takeaway for you? I'm curious. What is that one thing that you needed to hear? Even right, sometimes I think it's so interesting. I watch a video about dating. Like right now, I'm obsessed with evolution, and I watch a lot of Jordan Peterson. And there's also this book, Evolution of Desire from David M. Buss. It's all about human mating, and I'm just obsessed right now with this. And why did I tell you though? Wait, I'm so obsessed with that. Oh yeah, that sometimes I read a book about dating and then there's one line like, "Oh my God, that's perfect for business." Or sometimes I read a business book like B 2.0, that's like an entrepreneur book about the greatest companies and what they do differently. And I love this book and I learned so much about relationships from a business book. So sometimes we just watch something and we hear that one sentence that we needed to hear, even though it was not what we expected it. So was there something you needed to hear? There's always a reason for what is happening, and sometimes you only understand later. Oh yeah, that's so true. That's so true. Everything happens for a reason. That's definitely my life motto, my mantra. And I started thinking that I think when I was 14, 15. And because I started really internalizing this belief everything happens for a reason, I was so lucky to, in the beginning, it took me some time, but then it went really, really quickly, like very fast that I could catch up on the reason because I was training myself. Sometimes when, let's say, a friend, you have a meeting or you just want to have like a nice girls' day, and then she says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot this one appointment, and you were supposed to meet in an hour." And sometimes I was just mad, right? Because I wanted to meet her, and I was mad. I was just like, just so short. Not saying that this is always a good, communication, but because I knew, okay, everything happens for a reason, what I very quickly catched up on was actually this morning I thought, I'm a little introverted today. I just want to have a walk. I don't want to talk. Okay, no rhyme intended. I want to walk and I want to play the piano. But I was also happy to see my girlfriend. But then she said she's not available, unfortunately. And instead of being mad now because I believe everything happens for me, I'm barely mad and barely triggered when things like that happen. But it's always nice with like new women that I get to know. They're always like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry and I hope you're not mad." And I'm always like, "I'm not mad." Like it takes a lot more for me to get mad. Because of that, and I was so relaxed. And I remember this one teacher I had, I think it was philosophy, and I was writing an essay, and I wrote somewhere like everything happens for reasons. Like I don't know what context, but I wrote it there. And I remember she wrote like a little note with her red pen. They're like, "Yeah, that's so true, but I wish it would be easy to see the reason." And I thought, it is very easy to see the reason. Like I don't always know, but I feel like it's so easy to see that. Like once you train yourself, but I also have been training that since I'm 13 or 14. So I'm also working on this right now. Like I have some difficulties with my career and where I want to go. And I constantly have like job interviews that don't really work. And I realize I don't really want to have a job now. And I have this other idea what I can pursue and what I can really are like very excited to do. And I thought, oh, maybe that's why it never worked out like so far. Or it was just the wrong place for me. So it all happens for a reason, definitely. And I'm definitely deepening up this right now. God knows what you need and provides for you. Such a great man. Yes, I believe that too. Whenever I have daddy issues, oh, my dad was not exactly like this, I didn't have like the perfect role models. I'm like, no, God is my father and God protects me and God knows what I need, even if I don't necessarily always agree. Yeah. All right. Then I think that was it. That was a shorter one than usually. Oh, there's someone coming in. So I'm just about to wrap it up, but if you want to, you can share a little bit about your experience with men asking you out in the public because yeah, maybe I can just summarize it and then if something comes up, you can share it or if you have some questions then. Yeah, so the summary was that it is actually a good sign when men don't ask you out in the public because what I've learned that it's mostly more wild men and men who are not really serious asking like random women out in the streets and the men that are very long-term minded and don't want to make women feel uncomfortable. In my experience, they don't um, ask you out in the streets because first of all, they may be a little bit intimidated and they don't want to offend you. And yeah, it's always God protection. I think that's the most important lesson here. So thank you so much. You're perfect just the way you are, and you will find a beautiful and amazing relationship. And there are so many ways. All right. See you in the next one.